thought the family might enjoy seeing this.
How could you do this? This is insane.
The anonymous email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, containing a video file that would destroy my marriage, my family, and everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with Sunday lunch, because that's where this whole mess began, and that's where it's going to end. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Nick Ransom, and I used to believe in the American dream. White picket fence, loving wife, Sunday dinners with family. I'm 38, work as an IT project manager for a mid-sized company in Ohio, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had it all figured out. My wife Emily is gorgeous, successful in HR, and has this way of making everyone in a room feel like they're the most important person there. My brother Matt owns a gym, drives a BMW, and has the kind of effortless charm that made him homecoming king while I was building computers in my bedroom. Every Sunday, without fail, we gather at our house for lunch. Emily insists on it. Family is everything, Nick, she always says, adjusting the flowers on our dining room table with the precision of a museum curator. We need to stay connected. I used to love these gatherings. Used to. The house Emily and I bought 5 years ago sits in one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone else's business, but pretends they don't. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, the works. It's the kind of place where success is measured by the size of your garage and how green your grass stays in August. Nick, can you help me with the roast? Emily called from the kitchen last Sunday, her voice carrying that particular tone she uses when she wants something. Sweet on the surface, with just enough edge to let you know compliance isn't optional. I found her standing at the counter, blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, wearing one of those sundresses that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked like she stepped out of a magazine spread about suburban bliss. Matt's bringing Tara today, she said, not looking up from the cutting board. And my mother's coming too. Great, I muttered, opening the oven. The smell of rosemary and garlic filled the kitchen. The gang's all here. Emily shot me a look. Try to be pleasant, Nick. You know how much these lunches mean to me. Pleasant. Right. Because there's nothing more pleasant than watching your wife light up like a Christmas tree every time your brother walks into the room. Nothing suspicious about the way she always finds reasons to touch his arm when she laughs at his jokes, or how she suddenly developed an interest in fitness right around the time Matt opened his gym. But I'm probably just being paranoid. That's what Emily tells me whenever I mention it. You're being ridiculous, Nick. Matt's family. Of course I care about him. The doorbell rang at exactly 1 o'clock. Matt's always punctual when there's free food involved. I'll get it, Emily announced, practically skipping to the front door. I stayed in the kitchen, listening to the sound of greetings and laughter drifting down the hallway. Matt's voice, deep and confident. Tara's softer responses. Emily's delighted squeals of welcome. Nick! Matt's voice boomed as they entered the kitchen. There's my favorite brother. I'm his only brother, but who's counting? Matt Ransom looks like he was carved from marble by someone who really understood anatomy. 6'2", shoulders that could carry a small building, and the kind of smile that makes women forget their own names. He wrapped me in one of those aggressive bear hugs that's meant to demonstrate superior strength while masquerading as affection. How's the tech world treating you? He asked, clapping me on the back hard enough to rattle my teeth. Can't complain, I replied, stepping back. Business is good. Tara appeared beside him, looking uncomfortable in the way she always does at these gatherings. She's a quiet woman, pretty in an understated way, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that seem to see more than she lets on. Sometimes I wonder what she thinks about all this forced family togetherness. Hi, Nick, she said, giving me a genuine smile. Thanks for having us. Always a pleasure, I said, meaning it. Tara's never been anything but kind to me, which makes her choice in husbands all the more puzzling. Emily bustled around us, playing the perfect hostess. Matt, you look amazing. Have you been working out extra hard? He flexed playfully. You know me, Em. Always pushing for that next level. I noticed Tara's jaw tighten slightly at the casual nickname. Interesting. The front door opened again, and Emily's mother Barbara made her entrance. Barbara Henderson is 65 years old and has never met a criticism she didn't like. She's the kind of woman who can find fault with sunshine and probably has strong opinions about the moral character of rainbows. Nicholas, she said, giving me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek that felt like being blessed by a disapproving bishop. You look tired. Good to see you too, Barbara. She turned her attention to Matt, and her entire demeanor transformed. Matthew, darling, you get more handsome every time I see you. Just good genes, Mrs. H., Matt replied with a grin that could power a small city. We settled around the dining room table, and I found myself in my usual spot at the head, watching the dynamics play out like a chess match where I didn't know the rules. Emily had outdone herself with the meal. Herb-crusted roast beef, roasted vegetables, fresh bread that made the whole house smell like a bakery. She's always been an exceptional cook, which is one of the many things I fell in love with when we met 8 years ago. This is incredible, Em, Matt said, cutting into his beef. You're wasted on corporate life. You should open a restaurant. Emily beamed at the compliment. You're sweet, but I love what I do. Besides, cooking is just a hobby. Some hobby, Matt continued. Nick's a lucky man. I am lucky. Or I was. Or I thought I was. The truth is getting harder to pin down these days. The conversation flowed around topics I'd heard 1,000 times before. Matt's gym was expanding. He was thinking about opening a second location. Business was booming, thanks to all the New Year's resolution crowd who signed up in January and quit by March. You should come by more often, Nick, Matt said. I could get you set up with a training program, help you bulk up a little. There it was, the casual insult disguised as brotherly concern. Matt's been making comments about my physique since we were kids. I'm not fat, just built more like a marathon runner than a linebacker. But in Matt's world, if you can't bench press a small car, you're basically not a man. I'm good, thanks, I replied. I prefer my exercise to involve fewer mirrors. Emily laughed, but there was something forced about it. Nick's more of a thinker than a doer, she said, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach at the dismissive tone. Nothing wrong with that, Tara said quietly. The world needs both kinds of people. I shot her a grateful look. At least someone at this table didn't think I was a complete waste of space. Barbara launched into a story about her neighbor's son who'd just been promoted to regional manager at some insurance company. The subtext was clear. Why couldn't I be more ambitious like Barbara's neighbor's son? Nick's doing fine, Emily said, but her defense felt half-hearted. He's very good at what he does. Very good at what I do. Not passionate, not brilliant, not irreplaceable. Just very good. Like a reliable appliance. After lunch, while Emily and Barbara cleaned up, Matt suggested we sit on the back porch with beers. The October afternoon was crisp but not cold, and the leaves on our maple tree were just starting to turn. So how are things really going? Matt asked, settling into one of our patio chairs with the casual confidence of someone who owned the place. Things are fine, I said. Work's busy, Emily's happy, can't complain. Emily does seem happy, Matt said, and something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. She's got that glow, you know, like she's excited about something. She loves her job, I said, though even as I said it, I realized I wasn't entirely sure that was true anymore. Matt nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. Must be nice, having someone who appreciates you. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, man. Just that Tara and I have been going through a rough patch lately. She thinks I work too much, spend too much time at the gym. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was, actually. Emily had never complained about my work schedule. If anything, she seemed to prefer it when I stayed late at the office. Marriage is work, I said, falling back on one of those generic responses that sound wise but mean nothing. Yeah, Matt agreed. But some marriages are more work than others, right? Before I could figure out what he meant by that, Emily appeared in the doorway. Matt, could you help me move the dining room table back? I want to vacuum under it. Of course, Matt said, jumping up with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever. Whatever you need, Em. They disappeared inside, leaving me alone with my beer and a growing sense of unease I couldn't quite name. The feeling that something was wrong started small, like a pebble in your shoe that you ignore until it becomes unbearable. Little things that didn't quite add up. Emily's sudden interest in working out. The way she'd started putting her phone face down when I entered the room. How she'd begun staying late at the office more frequently, citing team-building exercises and mandatory training sessions. I'm not naturally suspicious. My default setting is to trust people, especially the people I love. But I'm also not stupid, and after 15 years in IT, I've developed a pretty good radar for when systems aren't running the way they're supposed to. It was a Wednesday evening, 2 weeks after that Sunday lunch, when I found the first piece of concrete evidence that my marriage might be experiencing some serious technical difficulties. Emily was in the shower singing something off-key that might have been Taylor Swift. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, and it buzzed with a text message. The screen lit up, showing a preview that made my blood run cold. Can't wait for tomorrow. Same time, same place. M. As in Matt. I stood there staring at the phone like it might explode, my mind racing through possible innocent explanations. Maybe they were planning a surprise party. Maybe Emily was helping Matt pick out an anniversary gift for Tara. Maybe Em wasn't Matt at all, but some co-worker named Michael, or Mark, or Melvin. But my gut knew better. My gut was screaming that my wife and my brother were having an affair, and I was the last person in the world to figure it out. The shower was still running. Emily's voice echoed off the bathroom tiles, oblivious and happy. I picked up her phone. It was locked, of course. But I knew Emily's passcode. It was our wedding anniversary, 0615. She'd never been very creative with passwords, which used to be an endearing quirk. Now, it felt like a gift from the universe. The text thread with Matt made for fascinating reading. Months of messages that started innocent enough but gradually became more intimate. Inside jokes, plans to meet. And then, about 6 weeks ago, the tone shifted completely. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. We have to be more careful. Nick's getting suspicious. I scrolled through message after message, each one a small knife to the chest. They'd been meeting at a hotel downtown every Tuesday and Thursday. Emily's late meetings at work, Matt's client consultations that ran past normal business hours. The bathroom door opened, and I quickly put the phone back on the nightstand, my heart hammering against my ribs. Emily emerged in a cloud of steam, wrapped in her favorite terry cloth robe, hair damp and face flushed from the hot water. She looked beautiful and guilty, and completely oblivious to the fact that her husband had just discovered her betrayal. "How was your day?" she asked, the same question she'd asked every evening for 8 years. "Fine," I managed. "Yours?" "Oh, you know, same old corporate nonsense. I have another late meeting tomorrow, so don't wait up for dinner." Another late meeting. Tomorrow was Thursday. I nodded and smiled and made appropriate responses while inside I was falling apart. This woman I'd loved, trusted, built a life with was lying to my face with the casual ease of someone ordering coffee. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Emily slept peacefully beside me. Every few minutes, she'd shift in her sleep, and I'd tense up, wondering if she was dreaming about him, about my brother, about the man who'd been my best man at our wedding, who'd given a speech about how lucky he was to have me as a brother and how perfect Emily and I were together. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed proof. Real, undeniable, court-admissible proof. Because confronting them based on text messages would just result in denials and explanations, and me looking like a paranoid husband who violated his wife's privacy. I called in sick to work, waited for Emily to leave for her job, and drove to an electronics store across town. The kid behind the counter couldn't have been older than 20, with purple hair and enough facial piercings to set off a metal detector. "I need a hidden camera," I told him. "Something small, wireless, good video quality." He looked me up and down, probably trying to figure out if I was a creep or just paranoid. "What's it for?" "Home security," I said, which wasn't technically a lie. He sold me a device about the size of a smoke detector that could be mounted on the wall and controlled remotely through an app. Professional quality, he assured me, used by private investigators and security companies. Installing it in our bedroom felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. But I was already across so many lines that one more didn't seem to matter. I positioned it to capture the bed and most of the room, tested the app to make sure I could access the feed remotely, then went to work and tried to pretend my world wasn't collapsing. Thursday evening, Emily kissed me goodbye at 6:30. "Don't wait up," she said. "This training session is going to run late." I waited exactly 15 minutes, then opened the app on my phone. For the first hour, nothing happened. The bedroom remained empty, exactly as we'd left it that morning. I started to wonder if I'd been wrong, if maybe Emily really was at a work function, and I was just a paranoid husband who'd been watching too many movies. Then, at 8:15, my bedroom door opened. Emily entered first, followed immediately by Matt. They were laughing about something, comfortable and familiar in a way that spoke of routine. This wasn't their first time in my bed. I won't describe what happened next in detail, because some images can't be unseen and some betrayals are too intimate to share. But I watched long enough to confirm what I already knew. My wife and my brother were having an affair, and they were having it in the bed where Emily and I had made love, where we'd talked about our dreams and fears, where I'd held her when she cried about her father's death. I turned off the app and sat in my car in the office parking lot, shaking with rage and humiliation and a cold, calculating fury I'd never experienced before. They thought they were so clever. They thought I was just boring, predictable Nick who would never suspect anything. They'd probably been laughing about it, about how easy it was to fool the naive husband. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. I'm not just an IT guy, I'm a systems analyst. I solve problems for a living. And Emily and Matt had just become a problem that needed solving. Over the next week, I gathered evidence with the methodical precision of someone building a case. I hired a private investigator named Marcia Chen, a former police detective who specialized in marital infidelity. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that inspired confidence. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked during our first meeting at a coffee shop downtown. "Based on the text messages, about 6 weeks for the physical stuff, but the emotional affair probably started months ago." Marcia nodded. "That's usually how it works. They convince themselves they're just friends until they're not. What do you want from this? Divorce evidence? Custody ammunition?" "I want them destroyed," I said, and the words surprised me with their vehemence. "I want everyone to know exactly what kind of people they are." "Revenge is expensive," Marcia warned, "and it's not always satisfying." Let me worry about the satisfaction part. Within a week, Marcia had uncovered more than I'd expected. Bank records showing Emily had been transferring money from our joint savings account to a private account I didn't know existed. Audio recordings of Emily and her coworker Simone discussing the plan to get me out of the house so Emily and Matt could move in together. Video footage of Matt bringing other women to the same hotel where he met Emily, proving he was cheating on both his wife and my wife. The evidence painted a picture of two people who weren't just betraying their spouses, but planning to systematically destroy the lives they'd built with other people. Emily wanted the house, the financial security, the respectability of marriage, but with Matt instead of me. Matt wanted Emily's stability and my money, but without giving up his other conquests. They'd been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment to spring their trap, probably figuring they'd present it as some tragic love story where they couldn't help falling for each other, and everyone would understand and forgive them because love conquers all. But they'd forgotten one important detail. I'm not just the cuckolded husband in their romantic drama. I'm the guy who designed the security systems they think they're so clever at circumventing. And I'm about to show them exactly how much they underestimated boring, predictable Nick Ransom. Sunday lunch was 3 days away. Our 8th wedding anniversary was next month. Emily had already started dropping hints about wanting to have a serious conversation about our future. Perfect timing, because I had some things I wanted to discuss too. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of October weather that makes you want to stay in bed with coffee and a good book. Instead, I was in the kitchen at 7 a.m., helping Emily prepare what would be our final family lunch. She was humming while she seasoned the roast, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to break over her perfectly arranged life. I watched her move around our kitchen with practiced efficiency, and tried to remember when I'd stopped seeing her as the woman I loved and started seeing her as a stranger wearing my wife's face. "You're up early," she said, not looking away from her prep work. "I thought you'd sleep in." "Couldn't sleep," I replied, which was true. I'd been awake most of the night, running through the plan one more time, making sure every detail was perfect. "You've been restless lately," Emily observed. "Maybe you should see a doctor. Get some sleeping pills." The concern in her voice sounded genuine, which made it worse somehow. She could compartmentalize her betrayal so completely that she still worried about my sleep schedule while planning to destroy my life. "I'll be fine," I said. "Just work stress." My phone buzzed with a text from Marcia. "Everything's ready. You sure about this?" I typed back, "Never been more sure of anything." Emily glanced over. "Work?" "Yeah, project deadline." She nodded sympathetically. "Well, try to relax today. Family time is important." Family time. Right. The guests started arriving at noon. Barbara came first, dressed in her Sunday best and carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly cable bill. She air-kissed me hello and immediately began critiquing Emily's table settings. "The napkins should be folded differently, dear," she said. "And these flowers are a bit much, don't you think?" Emily's smile tightened, but she made the adjustments without complaint. Even after 8 years of marriage, she was still trying to win her mother's approval. Matt and Tara arrived next, and I studied them both carefully as they entered. Matt was his usual confident self, shaking my hand with that aggressive grip and clapping me on the back like we were best buddies. But Tara looked different. There was something in her eyes, a sharpness I hadn't noticed before. "Nick," she said, giving me a hug that lasted a beat longer than usual. "How are you holding up?" "Holding up?" I repeated. "Just, life in general, work, stress, all that." There was something in her tone that made me wonder if she knew more than she was letting on. But before I could probe deeper, Emily swept in with drinks and appetizers, playing the perfect hostess. We settled in the living room for pre-dinner drinks, and I listened to the familiar rhythm of family conversation. Matt talked about his gym expansion plans. Barbara complained about her neighbors. Emily discussed some drama at her office involving budget cuts and personality conflicts. "Speaking of office drama," Emily said, "Simone sends her regards. She wanted to come today, but she had other plans." Simone. Emily's co-worker and apparent confidant in adultery. According to Marcia's investigation, Simone had been helping Emily cover her tracks, providing alibis and moral support for the affair. "That's too bad," I said. "I always enjoy Simone's company." Emily shot me a surprised look. I'd never particularly liked Simone, and Emily knew it. But today was about playing my part until the moment came to reveal the truth. We moved to the dining room at 1 o'clock, and Emily outdid herself with the presentation. The table looked like something from a magazine spread, complete with autumn centerpieces and her grandmother's china. She'd even lit candles, which struck me as ironic. Nothing says family togetherness like dining by romantic lighting while planning to betray everyone at the table. The conversation during dinner was lighter than usual. Matt told jokes that made Emily laugh too hard. Barbara offered backhanded compliments about the food. Tara remained mostly quiet, but I caught her watching Emily and Matt with calculating eyes. "This is delicious, Em," Matt said, cutting into his roast beef. "You really outdid yourself." "It's just a family recipe," Emily replied, but she glowed under his praise in a way that made my stomach turn. "Nick's lucky to have such a talented wife," Matt continued, and I had to admire the sheer audacity of it. He was complimenting my wife's cooking while planning to steal her from me. "I am lucky," I agreed. "Emily's full of surprises." Something in my tone made Tara look at me sharply, but Emily was too focused on Matt to notice. Dessert was Emily's famous apple pie, served with vanilla ice cream and more wine. The conversation turned to holiday plans, and Emily mentioned that she might not be available for Thanksgiving this year. "Work's sending me to a conference in Chicago," she said. "It's a great opportunity for advancement." This was news to me, but I nodded supportively. "That's wonderful, honey. When did this come up?" "Just this week. Simone recommended me for it." Of course she did. I made a mental note to add this lie to the growing pile of evidence. Barbara launched into a story about her book club's latest drama, something involving plagiarized recipes and hurt feelings. I let the conversation wash over me while I checked my phone discreetly. Everything was ready. "Actually," I said, standing up as Barbara finished her story, "I have a little surprise for everyone." Emily looked up with interest. "A surprise?" "I've been working on a project," I said, walking over to our entertainment center. "A family video, something to commemorate all our Sunday lunches together." I picked up the remote for our smart TV and smiled at the assembled group. "I thought you might like to see it." "Oh, Nick," Emily said, clapping her hands together. "That's so sweet." Matt leaned back in his chair. "This should be good. Nick's always been the creative one in the family." The TV screen flickered to life, and I navigated to the folder where I'd stored the videos. There were 3 files, labeled simply Video 1, Video 2, and Video 3. "This first one is from last Thursday," I said, clicking on the first file. The image that appeared on the 65-inch screen was crystal clear, thanks to the high-definition camera I'd installed in our bedroom. It showed Emily and Matt entering the room, laughing and touching each other with the familiarity of lovers. The reaction around the dinner table was immediate and explosive. Barbara gasped and dropped her wine glass, sending red liquid splashing across Emily's pristine tablecloth. Tara went completely still, her face draining of color. Emily made a sound like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Nick," she whispered, "turn it off." "But we haven't gotten to the good part yet," I said, my voice perfectly calm. On screen, Emily was unbuttoning Matt's shirt while he kissed her neck. The audio was clear enough to pick up their whispered endearments and breathless laughter. Matt jumped to his feet. "You sick bastard! Turn that off right now." "Sit down, Matt," I said, and something in my tone made him freeze. "We're just getting started." Barbara was making horrified noises, covering her eyes but peeking through her fingers like she was watching a car accident. Tara hadn't moved or spoken, but tears were streaming down her face. "Please," Emily begged, "please turn it off. I can explain." "Explain?" I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. "Oh, I think the video explains everything perfectly. But just in case anyone missed the subtext, let me play the second one." I clicked on Video 2, which showed Emily and Matt in bed afterward, talking in the lazy, intimate way of satisfied lovers. "Nick's so clueless," Emily's voice came through the TV speakers. "Sometimes I think he actually believes I'm working late." "He always was naive," Matt replied, stroking Emily's hair. "Remember when we were kids? He never could see what was right in front of him." "It's almost too easy," Emily continued. "He trusts everyone completely. It's like taking candy from a baby." The Emily sitting at my dinner table looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "That's not... I didn't mean..." "Oh, but you did mean it," I said. "And there's more." Video 3 was the audio recording Marcia had captured of Emily and Simone planning the endgame of their deception. Emily's voice filled the room, discussing how to get me out of the house, how to frame the divorce as my fault, how to make sure she got the maximum financial settlement. "The key is to make him think it's his idea," Emily's recorded voice explained. "If I can convince him that we're just not compatible anymore, he'll probably give me whatever I want just to avoid a messy divorce." Simone's laughter came through clearly. "You're diabolical, Em. Poor Nick has no idea what's about to hit him." "He's sweet," Emily's voice continued, "but he's weak. He'll roll over and take whatever I give him because he's too nice to fight back." The silence in the dining room was deafening. Barbara was staring at her daughter like she'd never seen her before. Tara had finally moved, but only to wipe the tears from her cheeks with shaking hands. Matt found his voice first. "You recorded us? You sick, perverted—" "I protected myself," I interrupted, "from two people who were planning to destroy my life for their own amusement." Emily was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. "Nick, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. I made a mistake, but—" "A mistake?" I stood up, and everyone at the table flinched. 6 months of planning and scheming is not a mistake, Emily. It's a calculated campaign of betrayal. Barbara finally found her voice. "Emily Rose Henderson, how could you do this? How could you humiliate your family this way?" "Mother, please. Don't you mother please me." Barbara's face was flushed with rage and embarrassment. "I raised you better than this, and with your own brother-in-law." "He's not my brother," Matt said defensively, which was exactly the wrong thing to say. Tara spoke for the first time since the videos started playing, her voice quiet but deadly. "Get out." "Tara, let me explain." "Get out!" she screamed, standing up so fast her chair toppled backward. "Get out of this house! Get out of my life! I never want to see you again!" Matt tried to approach her, but she backed away like he was radioactive. "Don't touch me," she whispered. "Don't ever touch me again." The room erupted into chaos. Barbara was shouting at Emily, calling her ungrateful and selfish. Matt was trying to salvage the situation with explanations and excuses that made everything worse. Emily was sobbing and begging forgiveness from everyone simultaneously. And I stood in the middle of it all, watching the destruction of my family with a calm detachment that probably should have worried me. "There's one more thing," I said, raising my voice to be heard over the mayhem. Everyone stopped yelling and looked at me. "Video 4, I said, clicking on the final file. This one showed Matt at the hotel with a different woman, a redhead I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was from 2 days ago, while Emily thought she was his only affair partner. Emily's sobs cut off abruptly as she stared at the screen. "What? Who is that?" "Her name is Jessica," I said. "She's a personal trainer at Matt's gym. According to my investigator, she's one of several women Matt's been seeing regularly. Apparently, you weren't as special as you thought, Emily." The look on Emily's face was almost worth the months of betrayal and humiliation. Almost. Matt was backing toward the door now, realizing that his brother had just systematically destroyed his marriage, his affair, and his reputation in the span of 15 minutes. "You're insane," he said. "You're completely insane." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." Barbara stood up, her face a mask of disgust and disappointment. "I'm ashamed to call you my daughter," she said to Emily. "Don't contact me until you've figured out how to apologize for this disgrace." She grabbed her purse and walked out without another word. Tara followed, but she stopped at the doorway and looked back at me. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for showing me the truth." Matt tried to follow her, but she slammed the door in his face. That left just Emily, Matt, and me in the wreckage of our dining room. "Now what?" Emily asked, her voice hoarse from crying. "Now you pack your things and get out of my house," I said. "Both of you." "This is my house too," Emily protested. "Actually, it's not." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared and set it on the table. "The house is in my name only. I bought it before we were married, remember? You have no legal claim to it." Emily's face went white. "You can't just throw me out. I have rights." "You have the right to find somewhere else to live," I said. "I'd suggest a hotel, but I understand you're already familiar with several in the area." Matt finally found his courage, puffing up his chest like he was going to intimidate me. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won?" "I know I've won," I said. "Your wife is divorcing you. Your business reputation is about to be destroyed when word of this gets out, and Emily here just discovered you've been cheating on her too. I'd say that's a pretty comprehensive victory." "This isn't over," Matt threatened. "Yes, it is," I said. "It's completely over. Your marriage is over. Your affair is over. Your relationship with this family is over. And if you don't get out of my house in the next 60 seconds, your ability to walk upright is going to be over too." For a moment, I thought he might actually try to fight me. But Matt's always been a bully, and bullies are fundamentally cowards. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. "Come on, Em," he said. "Let's get out of here." But Emily wasn't moving. She was staring at the folder I'd placed on the table. "What's in there?" she asked. "Divorce papers," I said. "Already filed, along with copies of all the evidence I've gathered. Your adultery, your financial deception, your plans to defraud me in the divorce settlement. I'm asking for nothing from you, Emily, but I'm also giving you nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, nothing. You can start your new life with exactly what you brought to this marriage, your clothes and your lies." Emily opened the folder with shaking hands and scanned the documents. "You can't do this. I'll fight it." "With what lawyer?" I asked. "You've been secretly draining our savings account, remember? And I doubt you'll find anyone willing to represent you pro bono in a case where you're clearly the guilty party." The fight went out of her then. She slumped in her chair, looking older than her 36 years. "I loved you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You loved the idea of me. The security, the stability, the nice house, and regular paycheck. But you never loved me, Emily. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do this." Matt was getting impatient by the door. "Em, we need to go. Now." Emily stood up slowly, like an old woman. "Can I at least pack some things?" "You have 10 minutes, I said, "and I'll be watching to make sure you only take what belongs to you." She nodded and walked toward the stairs, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Matt lingered in the doorway, and for a moment I saw something that might have been regret in his eyes. "We were brothers," he said quietly. "We were," I agreed. "But brothers don't betray each other. Brothers don't steal each other's wives and laugh about how stupid and trusting their victims are." He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but then closed it and walked out. I stood alone in my destroyed dining room, surrounded by the remnants of what used to be my life, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The house felt different after they left. Quieter, but not in a lonely way. More like the oppressive weight of deception had been lifted, leaving behind clean air and possibility. I spent the rest of Sunday cleaning up the evidence of our Last Supper, packing away Emily's grandmother's china, throwing out the wilted flowers that had decorated our final family meal. Monday morning brought the inevitable phone calls. Emily's lawyer, A sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Wells called at 8 a.m. sharp. "Mr. Ransom, I represent your wife in the divorce proceedings. I'd like to discuss a settlement." "There's nothing to discuss," I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. "The terms are clearly outlined in the paperwork. My client is willing to be reasonable about the adultery issue in exchange for a more equitable division of assets." I laughed, which seemed to surprise her. "Ms. Wells, your client spent 6 months planning to defraud me out of my house and savings while conducting an affair with my brother. Exactly what part of that strikes you as reasonable?" "Mr. Ransom, I understand you're hurt, but—" "I'm not hurt," I interrupted. "I'm done. Your client can sign the papers as written, or we can go to court and let a judge review the video evidence. Her choice." There was a long pause. "You recorded them?" "I protected myself from criminals," I said. "If your client wants to claim invasion of privacy, she's welcome to explain to a judge why she was committing adultery in my bed." Ms. Wells hung up without another word. The second call came from Matt, which surprised me. I'd expected him to slink away and lick his wounds in private. "Nick, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "5 minutes. Please, I'm outside your office." I looked out the window of my downtown office building and saw Matt's BMW parked across the street. He was leaning against it, phone pressed to his ear, looking like he hadn't slept. 2 minutes, I said. "In the lobby." I took the elevator down and found Matt pacing near the security desk. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Tara threw me out," he said without preamble. "Changed the locks, filed a restraining order, the works. Good for her. She's taking half my business in the divorce. Also, good for her." Matt ran his hands through his hair. "Look, I know you hate me right now, but we're still family." "No, we're not," I said calmly. "Family doesn't do what you did. It just happened, Nick. We didn't plan it." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of the audio recordings Marcia had captured. Emily's voice filled the lobby. "We need to be smart about this. If we can get Nick to think the marriage was his idea to end, he'll probably give me whatever I want just to avoid conflict." Matt's face went pale as his own voice responded. "He always was a pushover. Remember in high school when I convinced him to let me take Sarah Morrison to prom instead of him? Same principle." I turned off the recording. "Still think it just happened?" "Nick, you have 90 seconds left." Matt looked around the busy lobby, probably hoping for inspiration or sympathy. He found neither. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Money? I'll pay you back for whatever Emily took." "I don't want your money." "Then what?" "I want you to disappear," I said. "I want you to take your gym and your BMW and your fake charm and get out of my city. I want to never see you again. This is my home, too." "Not anymore." Matt stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to figure out if there was an angle he hadn't considered, some way to manipulate the situation back in his favor. "You've changed," he said finally. "No," I replied. "I've just stopped pretending you're someone you're not." He left without another word, and I watched through the lobby windows as he drove away. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no lingering anger. Just the calm certainty that I'd never have to deal with Matt Ransom again. The third call came Tuesday evening from an unexpected source, Tara. "Nick? It's Tara. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "Of course. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected, actually. I wanted to thank you for Sunday, for showing me the truth. I'm sorry you had to see it that way." "Don't be sorry. I needed to see it exactly that way. Clean, undeniable, impossible to rationalize or excuse." There was something in her voice, a strength I'd never heard before. "Can I ask you something, Nick?" "Sure. How long did you know?" "About 3 weeks. You?" Tara was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. 6 months, she said finally. 6 months? And you didn't say anything? I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. Matt's always been charming, always had women interested in him. I thought it was just my insecurity. But you knew. I knew. I hired my own private investigator 2 months ago. That's how I found out about the hotel, the other women, all of it. This was a revelation I hadn't expected. Why didn't you confront him? Because I wanted to be smart about it. I've been documenting everything, building a case for the divorce, protecting my assets. I learned from watching other women get destroyed in messy divorces because they acted on emotion instead of strategy. I felt a surge of admiration for this quiet woman I'd always underestimated. You've been planning your own revenge. I prefer to think of it as justice. Matt's going to lose the gym, the house, most of his savings, and his reputation. By the time I'm done with him, he'll be lucky to get a job as a personal trainer at someone else's facility. What about Emily? What about her? She made her choices. She can live with the consequences. We talked for another 20 minutes, and I discovered that Tara was nothing like the meek, overlooked wife I'd always thought her to be. She was intelligent, strategic, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting herself. There's something else, she said before we hung up. Something you should know. What? The camera in your bedroom? I'm the one who sent you that first video. I nearly dropped the phone. What? I'd been having Matt followed for weeks. My investigator got footage of him entering your house with Emily, and I thought you deserved to know what was happening. You sent me the anonymous email. I did. I'm sorry for the deception, but I wasn't sure how you'd react if you knew it came from me. This changed everything. Tara hadn't just been a victim in this situation. She'd been an active participant in exposing the truth. Why? I asked. Because you're a good man, Nick. You deserved better than what they were doing to you. And because I needed an ally, even if you didn't know you were one. An ally? Think about it. If you'd confronted them privately, they would have found a way to spin it, to make you look like the bad guy. But by exposing them publicly in front of family, you made it impossible for them to control the narrative. She was right. Emily and Matt couldn't claim it was a misunderstanding or a moment of weakness when the evidence was so overwhelming in public. You used me, I said, but I wasn't angry about it. We used each other, Tara corrected, and we both got what we needed. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house and marveled at how wrong I'd been about almost everyone in my life. Emily wasn't the loving wife I'd thought she was. Matt wasn't the charming but harmless brother I'd believed him to be. And Tara wasn't the passive, overlooked spouse I'd always seen her as. But the biggest revelation was about myself. I wasn't the weak, trusting pushover they'd all assumed I was. When pushed to the breaking point, I'd been methodical, strategic, and absolutely ruthless in protecting myself. It felt good to discover I was stronger than anyone had imagined. 3 weeks later, I thought the worst was behind me. Emily had signed the divorce papers without further protest, probably on the advice of her lawyer who'd reviewed the evidence and realized they had no case. Matt had put his gym up for sale and was apparently moving to Florida to start fresh, which was fine by me as long as fresh meant far away. I was beginning to think I could move on with my life when Emily showed up at my office on a Thursday afternoon, looking desperate and slightly unhinged. We need to talk, she said, pushing past my secretary despite being told I was in a meeting. I looked up from my computer to find my soon-to-be ex-wife standing in my doorway, and my first thought was how different she looked. The polished, put-together woman I'd married had been replaced by someone with hollow eyes and the kind of desperation that made people do stupid things. Emily, what are you doing here? I need you to stop this, she said, closing the door behind her. Call off your lawyer, withdraw the divorce papers, give us another chance. Us? I leaned back in my chair. I thought there was no us anymore. I thought you'd chosen Matt. Matt's gone, she said, and her voice cracked on the words. He left town yesterday, didn't even say goodbye. I wasn't surprised. Matt had always been good at abandoning ship when things got complicated. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Not because I felt bad for Emily, but because it confirmed everything I'd always suspected about my brother's character. He said he needed space to figure things out, Emily continued. But I know he's not coming back. He's done with me. So now you want to come back to me? I made a mistake, Nick. A terrible, stupid mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, rebuild our marriage, start over. I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse or self-awareness. What I saw instead was panic and calculation. Emily wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught and abandoned. No, I said simply. Please, I love you. You love the security I represent. There's a difference. Emily moved closer to my desk, and I caught a whiff of alcohol on her breath. It was 2 p.m. I know I hurt you, she said. I know I betrayed your trust. But people make mistakes, Nick. People deserve second chances. Some mistakes are too big for second chances. It was just intimacy, she said, her voice rising. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, I replied calmly. It meant that the woman I loved and trusted was lying to my face every day for months. It meant that you and my brother were laughing about how stupid and gullible I was. It meant that you were planning to destroy my life for your own convenience. Emily's composure cracked completely then. You're being ridiculous. So I had an affair. Lots of married people have affairs. It doesn't have to end everything. It ends everything for me. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You're really going to throw away 8 years of marriage over this? I'm not throwing anything away, Emily. You already did that. The desperation in her eyes shifted to something uglier. You think you're so superior, don't you? You think you're the perfect victim in all this? I think I'm done with this conversation. I reached for my phone to call security, but Emily grabbed my wrist. You want to know the truth, Nick? You want to know why I cheated? Not particularly. Because you're boring, she spat. You're predictable and boring and safe, and I felt like I was suffocating in this perfect little life you built for us. Then you should have asked for a divorce instead of betraying me. I tried to love you the way you wanted to be loved, she continued, ignoring my response. I tried to be the perfect wife, to appreciate your stability and reliability and all those wonderful qualities everyone said I should want in a husband. How noble of you! But Matt made me feel alive again. He made me remember what it was like to want someone, to be excited about seeing them, to feel passionate about something. And now he's gone. The words hit her like a physical blow. Emily's face crumpled, and she sank into the chair across from my desk. He said he loved me, she whispered. He said we were going to build a life together. Matt says a lot of things. He's been saying them his whole life. The difference is that most people figure out he doesn't mean them. I lost everything for him. My marriage, my family, my mother won't even speak to me. You lost everything because of your choices, I corrected. Matt didn't force you to have an affair. He didn't force you to lie to me or plan to defraud me in a divorce. You made those decisions. Emily looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Don't you feel anything? Don't you care that I'm hurting? The question caught me off guard because I realized the answer was complicated. Did I care that Emily was in pain? On some level, yes. I'd loved this woman for 8 years. I'd planned to spend my life with her. Seeing her destroyed didn't give me the satisfaction I'd expected, but I also knew that her pain was entirely self-inflicted, and that she was only sorry because her plan had backfired, not because she understood the depth of her betrayal. I care that you're hurting, I said finally. But I can't fix it for you, Emily. And I won't sacrifice my self-respect to make you feel better about your choices. She sat in silence for several minutes, and I could see her cycling through different strategies. The tears and desperation hadn't worked. The anger and blame hadn't worked. Now she was probably trying to figure out what approach might still save her. "What if I could prove that I've changed?" she asked finally. "What if I could show you that I'm committed to making this work?" "How would you do that?" "I'll do anything you want. Counseling, therapy, complete transparency with my phone and email. I'll quit my job if you want me to, stay home, focus on being a better wife." It was a tempting offer, in a way. The Emily sitting across from me was broken and desperate and completely at my mercy. There was a part of me that wanted to believe people could change, that love could overcome betrayal, that we could somehow rebuild what she'd destroyed. But I'd seen the videos. I'd heard the recordings. I knew exactly what Emily thought of me when she didn't think I was listening. "No," I said. "Why not?" "Because you're not sorry for what you did, Emily. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry Matt left you. You're sorry your plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for betraying me, and you're not sorry for the months of lies and manipulation." "That's not true." "Isn't it? If Matt called you right now and said he'd changed his mind, that he wanted to be with you after all, would you still be sitting in my office begging for another chance?" Emily's silence was answer enough. "I thought so," I said. "You don't want me, Emily. You want the security and stability I represent. You want someone to take care of you now that your grand romance has fallen apart. But I'm not interested in being your consolation prize." She stood up abruptly, her face flushing with anger. "Fine. You want to be alone? You want to throw away everything we built together? Go ahead. But don't come crying to me when you realize what you've lost." "I won't," I promised. Emily stormed toward the door, then turned back for one final shot. "You know what your problem is, Nick. You think you're better than everyone else. You think you're so moral and righteous, but you're just a coward who's afraid of taking risks, afraid of really living." "Maybe," I said, "but I'd rather be a coward than a liar." She left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat alone in my office for a long time after she was gone, processing the conversation and my own reactions to it. Emily was right about one thing. I was throwing away 8 years of marriage, 8 years of shared memories, inside jokes, quiet Sunday mornings, and dreams of growing old together. But those 8 years had been built on a foundation of lies. Emily had never been the woman I thought I'd married. She'd been playing a role, giving me what she thought I wanted while secretly resenting me for it. The real tragedy wasn't that our marriage was ending. The real tragedy was that it had never really existed in the first place. My phone rang, interrupting my brooding. It was Tara. "Hey," she said. "How are you doing?" "Emily just left my office." "Ah, let me guess. She wants you back now that Matt skipped town." "How did you know Matt left?" "He called me yesterday, trying to get me to drop the divorce proceedings. Said he was moving to Florida for a fresh start and wanted to part as friends." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to have his lawyer contact my lawyer and hung up." I found myself smiling for the first time all day. "You're tougher than I gave you credit for." "I'm tougher than I gave myself credit for," Tara replied. "Turns out being betrayed by your spouse is either going to destroy you or make you stronger. I decided to get stronger." "Any regrets?" "About divorcing Matt?" "None." "About the way I handled it?" "None." "About wasting 10 years of my life on someone who never deserved me?" "Every day." We talked for a few more minutes, and I found myself looking forward to these conversations with Tara. She understood what I was going through in a way no one else could, and there was something comforting about talking to someone who'd been through the same betrayal and come out the other side stronger. After we hung up, I looked around my office and realized something had shifted. For weeks, I'd been focused on revenge, on making Emily and Matt pay for what they'd done to me. But sitting there in the aftermath of Emily's desperate plea, I realized that the revenge was complete. Emily was alone, abandoned by her lover, estranged from her family, facing a divorce that would leave her with nothing. Matt was starting over in a new city with a ruined reputation and half his assets gone. They'd both lost everything they'd tried to steal from me, but more importantly, I was free. Free from the lies, free from the manipulation, free from the exhausting effort of trying to love someone who saw me as a meal ticket rather than a partner. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic about the future. I had no idea that the worst was still to come. Friday evening, I was at home grading some project proposals when my security system chimed. Someone was at the front door. The video monitor showed Emily and Matt standing on my porch, both looking agitated and desperate. Emily was gesturing wildly while Matt paced back and forth like a caged animal. This was unexpected. According to Tara, Matt was supposed to be halfway to Florida by now. I opened the door but left the security chain engaged, creating a gap just wide enough to talk through. "We need to get inside," Emily said immediately. "We need to talk to you." "We've already talked," I replied. "There's nothing left to discuss." "Please, Nick," Matt said, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "Just 5 minutes. You said you were leaving town." Plans changed. I studied both of them through the gap in the door. Emily looked like she'd been crying for hours, her makeup smeared and her hair disheveled. Matt was sweating despite the cool October evening, and his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you drunk?" I asked. "We're desperate," Emily said. "Nick, please, we have nowhere else to go." Against my better judgment, I closed the door, removed the chain, and opened it again. They rushed inside like they were being chased. "What's going on?" I asked, closing and locking the door behind them. Emily and Matt exchanged a look that was part guilt, part panic, and part something else I couldn't identify. "We need money," Matt said finally. "A lot of money." "For what?" "It's complicated," Emily said. "Uncomplicate it." They looked at each other again, and I realized they were scared, not just worried or anxious, but genuinely terrified. "Matt owes some people," Emily said finally. "Bad people." "What kind of bad people?" Matt ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood whenever he was in serious trouble. "I borrowed money to expand the gym. Private investors, not banks. Loan sharks. They prefer alternative lending partners," Matt said with a bitter laugh. "But yeah, basically." "How much do you owe?" $200,000. I whistled low. That's a lot of alternative lending. "The business was doing great," Matt continued. "I was sure I could pay it back within a year, but then everything fell apart after Sunday. After you got caught cheating on your wife with my wife." "People started canceling their memberships," Emily said. "Word got around about the affair, and Matt's reputation was destroyed. The business tanked almost overnight. And now the loan sharks want their money." "They want their money plus interest," Matt said. "And they're not the kind of people who accept payment plans." I looked back and forth between them, trying to process this information. "What does this have to do with me?" "We need you to loan us the money," Emily said, "just until we can get back on our feet." I stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to loan you money to pay off your boyfriend's gambling debts?" "They're not gambling debts," Matt protested. "It was a legitimate business investment." "That went bad because you couldn't keep it in your pants." "Nick, please," Emily said. "These people are dangerous. They've already made threats." "What kind of threats?" Matt pulled up his shirt, revealing a purple bruise that covered most of his left side. "They paid me a visit yesterday. Said next time it would be worse." I felt a flicker of sympathy, which annoyed me. Matt had gotten himself into this mess through his own arrogance and poor judgment. But he was still my brother, and the thought of him being seriously hurt bothered me more than I wanted to admit. "Why don't you just give them the gym?" I asked. "Sell it, pay them off, walk away." "The gym's worth maybe $50,000 in a fire sale," Matt said. "And that's if I can find a buyer, which I can't because everyone in town knows about the scandal." What about Tara? Can't she help? Matt's laugh was bitter. Tara's divorce lawyer has frozen all my assets. I can't access my own bank accounts. So you came to me. You're the only family I have left, Matt said, and for a moment, he sounded like the little brother I'd grown up with instead of the arrogant man who'd betrayed me. Family, I repeated. That's interesting, coming from someone who was screwing my wife in my bed. Emily flinched, but Matt met my eyes steadily. I know I screwed up, Nick. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way, but I'm still your brother. Are you? Because brothers don't betray each other the way you betrayed me. I was stupid and selfish, and I made terrible decisions, Matt said. But if these people kill me, that's not going to undo what I did. It's just going to make everything worse. Kill you? I looked at Emily. Are you serious? They broke 2 of his ribs yesterday, she said quietly, and they said next time they'd start with his knees and work their way up. This was spiraling beyond anything I'd anticipated. When I'd planned my revenge, I'd imagined public humiliation, divorce proceedings, and social ostracism. I hadn't considered that Matt might have gotten himself involved with actual criminals. Why didn't you go to the police? And tell them what? Matt asked. That I borrowed money from loan sharks, and now I can't pay them back? They'll just tell me it's a civil matter. Besides, Emily added, these people made it very clear what would happen if we involved law enforcement. I walked to the window and looked out at the quiet suburban street where I'd thought I was building a safe, predictable life. Nothing about this situation was safe or predictable. $200,000, I said. We'll pay you back, Emily said quickly. Every penny with interest. How? You don't have jobs, assets, or any way to generate income. We'll figure something out. That's not a plan, Emily. That's wishful thinking. Matt stepped forward. Nick, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm begging you, please don't let me die because I was too stupid and arrogant to see what I was throwing away. There was something in his voice, a vulnerability I'd never heard before, that got through my anger. This wasn't the cocky, charming Matt who'd stolen my wife and laughed about it. This was a scared, broken man who'd finally realized the consequences of his actions. I need to think about it, I said finally. We don't have time to think, Emily said. They want the money by Sunday or what? Or they start collecting in other ways. The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. These people weren't just threatening Matt. They were threatening Emily, too. Where are you staying? I asked. A motel on the highway, Matt said. The kind that rents by the hour and doesn't ask for ID. You can stay here tonight, I said, surprising myself. But I want some answers first. Relief flooded both their faces. Thank you, Emily whispered. Don't thank me yet. I haven't decided anything. I led them to the living room and gestured for them to sit on the couch. They huddled together like refugees, which I suppose they were. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning. No lies, no omissions, no spinning the story to make yourselves look better. For the next 2 hours, they laid out the whole sordid tale. Matt's business expansion had been more ambitious than he'd let on. He'd borrowed money not just for new equipment, but for a second location, a luxury apartment downtown, and the BMW he'd been driving around like a trophy. I wanted to impress Emily, he admitted. I wanted to show her I could provide the kind of life she deserved. So you borrowed money you couldn't afford to pay back. I was sure the business would support it. The fitness industry is booming, and I had a solid reputation. Had being the operative phrase. The loan sharks were apparently part of a larger organization that specialized in lending to small businesses that couldn't get traditional financing. The interest rates were astronomical, but they didn't require the paperwork and credit checks that banks demanded. They seemed legitimate at first, Matt said, professional, organized, like any other business. Until you couldn't make the payments. The first missed payment, they were understanding. Said these things happen, gave me an extension. The second missed payment, they were less understanding. By the third, he gestured to his bruised ribs. And Emily got involved how? Emily looked uncomfortable. I co-signed some of the paperwork. You what? Matt said it was just a formality, that the lenders required a second signature for larger amounts. I stared at her in disbelief. You co-signed a loan for $200,000 with loan sharks. I didn't know they were loan sharks at the time. But you knew you were signing financial documents without telling your husband. Emily's face flushed red. I was going to tell you after... After what? After you divorced me and took half my assets? It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said quietly. How was it supposed to happen? We were going to wait until after the divorce was final, Matt said. Emily would get her settlement. We'd use that money to pay off the loans, and then we'd start fresh together. Using my money. We would have paid you back eventually. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You were planning to steal my money to pay off your debts, and you think that's somehow better than just asking me for help? We knew you'd never agree to help us if you knew about the affair, Emily said. So you decided to trick me instead. We were going to tell you the truth eventually. When? After you'd bankrupted me and destroyed my life? Neither of them had an answer for that. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, needing some distance to process what they'd told me. The situation was even worse than I'd imagined. Not only had Emily and Matt betrayed me personally, but they'd also gotten themselves involved with dangerous criminals and dragged me into it by extension. If these loan sharks were as violent as they claimed, and if Emily had indeed co-signed the paperwork, then her life was in genuine danger. And despite everything she'd done to me, I couldn't just stand by and watch her get hurt. But $200,000 was more money than I had in liquid assets. I'd have to liquidate my retirement accounts, take out a second mortgage on the house, maybe even sell some investments at a loss. I was contemplating loaning a fortune to two people who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way, to save them from consequences of their own making, with no guarantee I'd ever see the money again. It was possibly the stupidest thing I'd ever considered doing, which is probably why I was going to do it. I returned to the living room to find Emily and Matt sitting in tense silence, watching me with the desperate hope of people whose lives depended on my next words. I'll loan you the money, I said. Emily burst into tears of relief. Matt looked like he might faint. But, I continued, there are conditions. Anything, Matt said quickly. First, you both sign a promissory note with a payment schedule and penalty clauses. This is a business transaction, not a gift. Of course. Second, you leave town immediately after this is resolved. I don't want to see either of you again. We understand. Third, if you ever contact me again for any reason other than loan payments, the entire amount becomes due immediately. Agreed. I looked at Emily. And you sign an additional agreement acknowledging that this loan has no impact on our divorce settlement. You're not entitled to any of my assets, and this doesn't constitute marital property. I'll sign whatever you want, she said through her tears. Good. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork tomorrow. In the meantime, you can stay in the guest room. Thank you, Matt said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Nick, I know this doesn't make up for what we did, but... You're right, I interrupted. It doesn't. I'm not doing this for you, Matt. I'm doing it because I don't want your death on my conscience. I understand. Do you? Because I want to be very clear about something. After this, we're done. You're not my brother anymore. Emily's not my wife anymore. You're just two people I used to know who owe me a lot of money. Matt nodded, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. Good. Maybe it was time he learned that actions have consequences, even for charming, entitled people who'd always gotten away with everything. There's one more thing, I said. I want to meet these loan sharks. Emily and Matt both went pale. That's not a good idea, Matt said quickly. Why not? If I'm paying off your debt, I want to make sure it's actually resolved. These aren't the kind of people you want to meet, Nick. Maybe not, but they're the kind of people I need to meet if I'm going to protect myself from future problems. What do you mean? I mean, I want to make sure they understand that once this debt is paid, it's over. No future contact, no additional interest, no coming back for more money later. Matt and Emily exchanged another look, this one pure terror. You don't understand, Emily said. These people don't just go away. Once you're involved with them, you're involved for life. Then maybe I shouldn't get involved at all. No, Matt said quickly. No, we'll set up a meeting. Whatever you want. I smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Good. Because I think it's time I met the people who've been threatening my family. Neither Emily nor Matt looked happy about this development, but they were in no position to argue. They'd come to me for help, and help came with conditions. What they didn't know was that I had no intention of just handing over $200,000 and hoping for the best. I'd learned a lot about strategic planning and risk management over the past few weeks. It was time to put those skills to use. Epilogue. Sunday dinner. The meeting was set for Sunday at noon, which struck me as oddly appropriate. It seemed like all the major turning points in this mess had happened on Sundays. The location was a warehouse in the industrial district, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions about unusual noises. I arrived 15 minutes early and parked across the street, watching the building through binoculars I'd borrowed from my neighbor Greg. At exactly noon, a black SUV pulled up to the warehouse entrance. 3 men got out, all wearing expensive suits that didn't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. They looked like Central Casting's idea of professional criminals, cold eyes, confident movements, and the kind of physical presence that made people step aside without thinking about it. Matt's BMW arrived 5 minutes later. I watched Emily and Matt get out of the car, both looking terrified but trying to hide it. Matt was carrying a briefcase that I knew contained $200,000 in cash, withdrawn from my accounts that morning. I waited another 5 minutes, then drove to the warehouse and parked next to the BMW. The money was my insurance policy, but I had no intention of handing it over without getting some guarantees first. The warehouse door was unlocked. I stepped inside and found myself in a large, mostly empty space, lit by harsh fluorescent lights. Emily and Matt were standing near a folding table where the 3 men sat like they were conducting a board meeting. The man in the center was older than the other 2, maybe 55, with silver hair and the kind of calm confidence that comes from years of getting what you want through intimidation. He looked up as I entered. "You must be Nick," he said, standing and extending his hand. "I'm Vincent Carrera. Thank you for coming." I shook his hand, noting the firm grip and the way his eyes assessed me like I was a potential threat or opportunity. "Mr. Carrera, I understand my brother owes you money. $237,000 as of today. Interest accumulates daily." "Of course it does." Vincent gestured to an empty chair across from the table. "Please sit. Let's discuss this like civilized people." I sat down, placing my own briefcase on the floor beside me. "I'm prepared to pay Matt's debt in full, but I have some conditions." "I'm listening." "First, once this money changes hands, Matt and Emily are done with your organization. No future contact, no additional services, no coming back for more loans." "Agreed." "Second, I want written confirmation that the debt is paid in full, with no remaining obligations." "That can be arranged." "Third, I want your personal guarantee that neither Matt nor Emily will be harmed, now or in the future, for any reason related to this debt." Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're very thorough, Nick. I'm careful. Careful is good. Careful people live longer." He leaned back in his chair. "Your conditions are acceptable. Do you have the money?" "I do." But before we proceed, I need to understand something. What's that? How did my brother get involved with your organization? Matt's not the brightest guy in the world, but he's not usually stupid enough to borrow money from loan sharks. Vincent glanced at Matt, who was sweating profusely despite the cool air in the warehouse. Your brother came to us, Vincent said. He needed capital for business expansion, and traditional lenders had turned him down. Why? His credit history was problematic. I looked at Matt. Problematic how? Matt shifted uncomfortably. I had some issues a few years ago. Credit cards, a car loan that went bad, some medical bills. You never mentioned any of this. I was embarrassed. Vincent continued. We specialize in helping people who can't get traditional financing. Your brother presented a solid business plan and seemed confident he could repay the loan. But he couldn't. Business is unpredictable. Sometimes investments don't work out as planned. And sometimes people make poor decisions that destroy their reputations and tank their businesses. That too. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. $237,000, as requested. Vincent nodded to one of his associates, who took the envelope and began counting the bills with practiced efficiency. While he's doing that, Vincent said, perhaps you'd be interested in discussing some business opportunities of your own. What kind of opportunities? A man with your resources and intelligence could be very valuable to our organization. We're always looking for partners who understand the importance of discretion and reliability. Thanks, but I'm not interested in expanding my criminal resume. Vincent laughed. Criminal is such a harsh word. We prefer to think of ourselves as alternative financial services. Call it whatever you want. I'm not interested. Think about it. Your brother's debt problems could have been avoided if he'd had better guidance. The right partner could have helped him make smarter decisions. The right partner would have told him not to borrow money he couldn't afford to pay back. Perhaps. But that's not how business works, is it? Sometimes you have to take risks to achieve your goals. The man counting money looked up and nodded. It's all here. Vincent smiled and pulled out a piece of paper from his jacket. As promised, written confirmation that Matthew Ransom's debt to our organization is paid in full, with no remaining obligations. He signed the document with a flourish and slid it across the table. I read it carefully, noting the official letterhead and legal language that made it look like a legitimate business transaction. There is one more thing, Vincent said, as I folded the document and put it in my pocket. What's that? Your brother's debt is resolved, but his indiscretions have created some complications for our organization. What kind of complications? The publicity surrounding his affair has drawn unwanted attention to some of our business activities. People are asking questions, making connections they shouldn't be making. I felt a chill run down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying that while your brother's financial obligations are complete, his obligations to our organization may not be. Matt went white. What does that mean? It means you may be asked to relocate somewhere more private while the situation resolves itself. For how long? That depends on how quickly people lose interest in your story. I stood up abruptly. That wasn't part of our agreement. Vincent remained seated, but his two associates moved slightly, positioning themselves between me and the door. Sit down, Nick, Vincent said calmly. Let's discuss this reasonably. There's nothing to discuss. I paid the debt. You gave me written confirmation it's resolved. We're done here. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Vincent sighed like he was dealing with a difficult child. Your brother's affair created a public scandal that's interfering with our business operations. That has a cost, and someone needs to pay that cost. How much? It's not about money this time. It's about discretion. Meaning? Meaning your brother and his girlfriend need to disappear for a while, somewhere quiet where they can't attract any more attention. I looked at Matt and Emily, both of whom looked like they were about to faint. And if they refuse? Vincent's smile turned cold. Let's hope they don't refuse. The warehouse fell silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of my own heartbeat. I'd walked into what I thought was a simple business transaction and found myself in the middle of something much more dangerous. How long? I asked. 6 months, maybe a year, until people forget about the scandal and move on to other gossip. Where? We have facilities in several states. Nothing luxurious, but safe and private. You're talking about kidnapping. I'm talking about protective custody, for their own safety, of course. The euphemisms were getting ridiculous, but the threat was clear. Matt and Emily were going to disappear whether they agreed to it or not. What about me? You're free to go, naturally. You fulfilled your obligations to us. And if I go to the police? Then you'll be reporting a crime that never happened. Your brother and his girlfriend left town voluntarily to start a new life somewhere else. Very romantic, really. I looked around the warehouse, calculating distances and angles. Vincent's 2 associates were positioned to block the main entrance, but there was a fire exit near the back of the building. If I could create enough of a distraction... Actually, I said, sitting back down, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Vincent raised an eyebrow. How so? I pulled out my phone and opened an app that looked like a simple calculator. You see, I'm not just an IT project manager. I also do some consulting work for law enforcement agencies. That's interesting. Specifically, I help them with surveillance technology, hidden cameras, audio recording devices, that sort of thing. Vincent's expression didn't change, but I saw his associates tense up. This phone has been recording our entire conversation, I continued. High-definition video and audio, automatically uploaded to a secure server. I see. More importantly, there are 3 unmarked police cars positioned around this warehouse, waiting for my signal. This was a complete lie, but I delivered it with enough confidence to make Vincent's associates reach for their weapons. I wouldn't do that, I said calmly. The moment you draw those guns, this building will be surrounded by SWAT officers. Vincent held up a hand, stopping his men from drawing their weapons. You're bluffing. Am I? Do you really want to find out? We stared at each other across the table, and I could see Vincent calculating odds and possibilities. He was a professional criminal, which meant he was also a professional risk assessor. The question was whether he thought I was dangerous enough to be telling the truth. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to honor our original agreement. Matt's debt is paid, he and Emily are free to go, and your organization never contacts any of us again. And if I refuse? Then in about 30 seconds, this warehouse is going to be full of federal agents with arrest warrants. Vincent smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're either very brave or very stupid, Nick. I prefer to think of myself as very prepared. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Vincent's associates were looking to him for guidance, hands hovering near their weapons. Matt and Emily were frozen in terror, probably wondering if they were about to witness a shootout. Finally, Vincent laughed and clapped his hands slowly. Impressive. Very impressive. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Your brother and his girlfriend are free to go with our compliments. And the written agreement stands? The written agreement stands. Vincent stood up and straightened his jacket. You know, Nick, my offer of partnership still stands. A man with your skills and nerve could go far in our organization. Thanks, but I'll stick with legitimate employment. Your loss. Vincent and his associates walked toward the door, but he stopped and turned back before leaving. One piece of advice, he said. Your brother is weak, and weak people make poor decisions. Don't let his problems become your problems again. I won't. Good. Because next time, there might not be police cars waiting outside. They left without another word, and I heard the SUV drive away a few minutes later. Matt and Emily were still frozen in place, staring at me like I'd just performed a magic trick. Are we safe? Emily whispered. You're safe. Were there really police cars outside? No. Then how did you… I convinced him I was more dangerous than I actually am. Sometimes that's enough. Matt found his voice. Nick, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Just disappear like you promised. We will. Today. Good. I picked up my briefcase and headed for the door, then stopped and looked back at them one final time. Matt? Yeah? Vincent was right about one thing. You are weak, you make poor decisions, and you drag other people down with you. If you ever contact me again, for any reason, I'll make sure Vincent learns exactly where you are. Matt nodded, understanding the threat. I walked out of the warehouse and drove home to my quiet suburban house, where I made myself a sandwich and tried to process what had just happened. I'd bluffed my way out of a confrontation with professional criminals, saved my ex-wife and brother from kidnapping or worse, and hopefully closed the door on this chapter of my life forever. It was, I reflected, probably the most terrifying and exhilarating thing I'd ever done. My phone rang as I was finishing my sandwich. It was Tara. Hey, she said. How did it go? I'd called her that morning to let her know what was happening, figuring someone should know where I was in case things went badly. Better than expected. They're safe, the debt is paid, and Matt and Emily are leaving town today. And you're okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Good. I was worried about you. We talked for a few more minutes, and I found myself looking forward to these conversations more and more. Tara understood what I'd been through, and there was something comforting about talking to someone who'd survived the same betrayal and come out stronger. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and looked around at the house Emily and I had bought together. It felt different now, like it was finally mine instead of ours. The oppressive weight of deception and lies was gone, replaced by possibility and hope. I'd lost a wife and a brother, but I'd gained something more valuable: self-respect, and the knowledge that I was stronger than anyone had imagined, including myself. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Thank you, E. I deleted it without responding. Outside, the October sun was setting, painting my neighborhood in shades of gold and amber. Tomorrow was Monday, and I'd go back to work, back to my normal routine, back to building a life that was honest and real. For the first time in months, I was looking forward to it.